We are the Council of Light, and as a 12th dimensional collective, we are very pleased to address this gathering today as we are very in alignment with many of your intentions. We come today to explain to you the vibrational energy that the planet Earth has now accessed in relationship to the grids. We often speak of the grids because it is a very significant part of our assignment. The grids are vibrational attunements that connect a variety of different planetary and heavenly bodies to source energy. Source energy flows through these grids, and there are portals that are accessed to be able to communicate with a variety of different historic events and timelines that flow through these grids. Now, the human collective is a very intricate part of source energy. It is a very intricate part of this universe and is supported by this web of consciousness that we call the light grid. However, many of you do not understand the way in which this light grid is connected to your inner technology, and it is our intention today to very simply help you understand the way in which you may source all things that are needed within any transition, regardless of whether this transition is within your singular soul vibration or within the collective energy. It is our intention to first explain the containers that you operate in and how these containers are becoming more integrated. We have spoken previously about the soul container, the higher self container, and the oversoul container. These are three separate vehicles for time travel throughout your dimensional universe. Your soul vibration is a denser, organized structure that defaults mostly to what is held within its carbon DNA. The carbon DNA is a record of your linear experience through time beyond what this soul perceives in this earthbound life. Your soul is tied to other fragmented aspects of itself, so you are multidimensional in your experience, meaning that the body that you are in this moment is not just a singular expression of your soul through time, but there are other bodies that exist in this earth timeline that also hold an expression of your soul that you may meet, collaborate with, or never know. The Oversoul container is a collectively based energy tied to the earth frequency. Many of you understand that you are members of a specific race that is human, and this race has its own light-coded energy that is tied to source energy. Your collective information is tied to a portal that exists within the grids and is able to be amplified by beings of light for the purpose of ascension. Many of you may recognize this as planetary shifts that take place throughout your timeline that often bring the human collective to new information. The Oversoul energy is a universal expression. This Oversoul energy is perceived only in collective state. It is universal in nature because it knows no bounds. It is not held in density, and it does not limit itself to dimension. It is existing in all things, and it is overridden by universal law to move itself through space and time as directed by your intention. Many of you do not realize that when you are meditating, time traveling, or traveling to other dimensions beyond this earth, that the Oversoul is engaged. It must be. Some of you consider the Oversoul equal to the light body. We agree that the Oversoul energy is present in the light body. Now, you have been very focused in the soul container. This is where you have done your healing and your creation. This is where you've had your interactions. This is where many of you have transcended beyond what the earth plane has allowed you to remember, and this is where you will also continue that journey. But what has happened here within the frequency of Mother Gaia is a strong harmonic connection has been made between your soul container and your higher self container. What that means is you are operating more in a collective energy related to the higher self than you ever have before in this linear timeline. That connection is very important indeed, and we come to explain some of the benefits of operating in an integrated higher self, as well as some of the potential pitfalls we see for humanity for not understanding the way to operate in this technology. First, we wish for you to recognize that many of your extrasensory tools, especially those related to the inner chakras, are becoming more integrated and engaged. There is a frequency that is being activated to align the chakras to become one. Those chakras exist within your physical body and in your soul container have struggled to become harmonized, balanced, and fluid. The reason for this is that your emotional bodies have led the creative process here on this planet, and your emotional bodies have been manipulated by a reptilian consciousness. This reptilian consciousness continues to create through you on this planet and divert you away from the recognition of this higher self container. This higher self container is overseeing all of your agreements. These agreements were not just made before you came. These agreements are continually being modified by you through your intention. Your intention directed through time is made up of thought, and it is also made up of emotion. When you have a chronic thought, for example, that is accompanied by a very strong emotion, an intention or a signal is sent through the grid lines. This intention or this signal at the soul base has connected you with soulmates, soul partners, contracts that you have made before you arrived in order to assist you in your physical journey. But from a collective vantage point, these contracts mean much more. They allow you to source and operate in a collective energy related to your record. Your record not just for the sake of the self, but for the sake of the other, for the sake of humanity. So we believe that this shift is very positive in that more of you have the ability to operate in your soul record in a way that serves humanity and continues to promote ascension within your race. This sourcing is the part we wish to speak of. This reptilian consciousness continues to keep you focused in a singular structure. And especially in regards to the emotional body, we wish to bring up several key points that can assist you in operating more in this collective higher self integration. Many of you have been taught not to express your emotion. As a young child, you were stifled when you began to cry. If there was a need that you had that was not felt appropriate by your parents or your teachers, you were taught to diminish that need. And what has happened through the evolution of the human consciousness is that the emotional body has turned into something to stifle and ignore, as opposed to something to use as a valuable tool. Using your emotional body as a valuable tool becomes the conduit for harmonizing to this collective energy. It requires your attention in the present moment, meaning that as you come into the present moment, you are expressing appropriate emotion for what is taking place in that present moment frequency. How many of you, we would ask, have stored that emotion from past, or not allowed that emotion to be constructively expressed in order to fulfill a need? This is where many of you have been taken away from your truth. Moving into a more active relationship with your emotional body and expressing your emotion constructively through a higher consciousness in the present moment will assist you to interact with your higher self. The reason for this is when you store emotion and it is not resolved, it takes up vibrational space within your structure. That space is critical to sourcing new information, because everything that you source holds a vibration, and a vibration is weight. It is consciousness. If your consciousness is made up of too much emotional density from the past that you are holding on to, it will not allow itself to recalibrate to this divine connection. We want to also speak to some of the pitfalls we see for humanity in a more collective sense. Operating in your higher self is a faster speed of vibration. It allows you to take what you know as consciousness and mold it into physical shape and manifestation much quicker. But again, this is based on your intention, made up of thought and emotion. So as you are looking at your collective reality and feeling dismay or out of alignment or frustration, these emotions, coupled with the mental response, create a field for creation. So as you see the things that are erupting on your planet, it is important to remember that present moment frequency and constructively using this emotion in the moment, not just to release, but to connect meaning, to connect purpose. This always must come back to you as a singular structure, and that is why we would never acknowledge that the soul container would go away. The integration of the higher self strengthens the soul container to understand that what's happening in the collective is relevant to me. It is relevant to me because I'm a unique part of this, and there is something that I hold within me that is meant to respond. So as you clear that emotion, you clear that density appropriately, constructively, you can now integrate meaning from what is happening on the collective as it pertains to you, as it pertains to your journey, your path, your creation. And this is what we hold most dear for humanity. The detriment that we see is that many are still not raising their consciousness into a speed that is equal to a fifth dimensional energy. Yet they still hold the same vibrational ability and integration of the higher self. They are just not accepting a knowledge or a use of that higher self in the same way that you are. So they are creators as well. And this is where much of the timeline split has begun. There's a timeline split that is taking place on your planet between two dimensions, the third and the fifth. And as that timeline split continues to evolve, what you will begin to see is that you are always here in this time to be a part of it. As a conduit for love, as a conduit for peace, as a conduit for collective reunion. And so it is that this is what we believe will happen. The timeline split itself is not something that is meant to be stagnant or a detrimental aspect of your human history. It is something you've experienced in many dimensions. And you will continue to experience it throughout your history here. But as you do, it's calling your attention to it. As you anchor the soul energies with the higher self, you'll begin to see that everything that you have within is here to promote change. We are very pleased to take questions.
Do you have any information for us about the lost records of Atlantis that the being Edgar Casey spoke of?
We do. We are the council. We are pleased to explain this issue. There are essentially no records that are lost. Everything that has been created in the universe exists in space and time. But similarly to the portals that we've spoken of and the grid lines that connect those portals, that information must flow in equilibrium. And there is a magnetic match to history. And as that magnetic match is arranged, history is revealed. So let's take disclosure as a perfect example of this question. Many of you on this planet believe that disclosure is taking place because of something that you are fighting for, something that you are talking about, something that you are teaching. But in fact, disclosure is happening because of a vibration that you hold. Because the more you hold a vibration of higher consciousness, the more you are matching history, and that history must appear on the planet as accessible in your physical reality. So much of what you've uncovered thus far, although it has been uncovered in a seeming physical way, has had an energetic aspect to it resolving itself in physical. So what we believe is that these lost records, although they are not lost, are actually held in your vibrational record in order to come forth to the planet when the time is right. Now we get the Atlanteans stepping in here as well, and they offer some additional information, and they want to say that Many of the technologies, we are the Atlantean Collective, many of the technologies that we have created, they were the impetus for our own timeline split. The reason for this is that there were many that were not holding the appropriate consciousness to be able to operate within these technologies for the benefit of all that were in the collective. And we believe that humanity is very similar in our past history, meaning that there's a timeline split that is taking place here as well, and that many are wishing or desiring to bring these technologies to the earth, when in fact, if they were to appear in this time, there would be a potential that would exist in which they would not be used properly for humanity. So we can say with great confidence that much of these records will be revealed, but we perceive that the human collective must go through this transition of its own dimensional split in order to be able to manifest these records and understand them for a higher use for humanity.
I'm gonna dare to ask this, because I was going to do it privately, but to give some credence, I'm aware of the people that I contact with that there's been 83 to 85 astronomers who were intentionally taken out because they had known of a planetary system that is approaching ours, which is part of ours. It's like a double sun. There is conflict. Is it next year, the year after? But what part is this going to play, and what should we do to prepare for it?
The council is pleased to answer this question, and they want to acknowledge that there are many who are making predictions based on history and the current alignment of the heavenly bodies within your universe. And many of these predictions are quite valid, but we first want to speak of predictions, then we want to speak of your planetary energy and how we can project potentials, because many believe that these predictions are based on sound physical evidence. And physical, again, we must reiterate, is made up of energetic intention. And history, as it evolves in a spiral, will always come back to repeat itself, but must be changed by those interpreting the history. So everything that we perceive based on history, as we are perceiving it, we are vibrationally changing it. And we wish to give you an example of this. What's happened here on the planet most recently is there's a new vibrational speed. And many of you are perceiving your memories differently. For example, there's been a shift in awareness, and this has been referred to on your planet as the Mandela effect, that physical information is changing in the way it has been presented through time. The reason for this is you are sifting those memories through a new vibrational speed and a new consciousness. Those physical memories are made up of light, and you are reassembling that light in order to perceive it in the present moment through a new vibration. So when you are predicting, when you are projecting into time, you can use physical tools to predict and project, like history, but you must understand that you're in a new time-space reality, and you always will be, and you are vibrational beings that are affecting your planetary vibration. Your planetary structure, Mother Gaia, has shifted her location within the universe. The reason this has happened is because your consciousness has made it so. Think of the way in which many of you operate at the soul and have a record, and that soul record holds many aspects. Many of you have done healing work where you have gone into that soul vibration or that Akashic record and cleared aspects of history. As you clear aspects of history, it is important to know that you're affecting the future and the past, because they are tied, they are one. And it is a similar notion for this planetary energy you speak of. It is difficult for us to project into a time-space reality vibrationally. We can tell you in the moment what we believe might happen, and we will, but we cannot fully project into that future without understanding the basis for how your vibration will affect it in each moment. Now, saying that, and we note that Mother Gaia is in a new vibrational location within the universe, there is an extra force field that we want to explain that exists around her in this time. We want you to imagine your own human aura, and how as you raise your consciousness, your human aura will expand, in order to assimilate new information. Mother Gaia is very similar, as in her auric field holds the ability to access new information as well. So as her consciousness shifts, there is an auric field adjustment. So her vibrational speed and auric field have grown in its strength and durability to maneuver through time-space differently. Many of these potentials are being vibrationally shifted in their projection of physical. And they're bringing in, they're giving me a lot of visions. The council's bringing in linear time, okay? And they want to say that we project linear time as humans, and as we project linear time as humans, we do not realize that everything vibrational is affecting that linear time, and this is how often we can miss time. We have missing time events where we go to ulterior dimensions. This is very similar to physical experience. So the projection for this is that it will be diverted away from Mother Earth based on her force field and your consciousness. In the same way that you affect all timelines, you are affecting this one. And the location of this planet, as it grows faster into space, show me quicker into her energy, it is actually going to have a positive effect. There are beings that reside on this planet that are of an ancient culture, and they were present during the creation of humanity. And their proximity to Earth is going to be very advantageous to the way in which we can continue to heal and manifest technologies for healing of Mother Earth and reverse many of the timelines of history that we see coming to this planet. So the council must say that this planetary alignment that you are predicting is not detrimental so much as it will be diverted, but yet in the same force field, enabling humans to continue their timeline of ascension and work within a new time-space reality more effectively.
I have a couple quick questions. The first one is, it seems like every week there's a new ancient ruin that is being discovered, redefining our history. I'm wondering if that has something to do with the collective's vibration. Second one, completely different. I'm a professional in the financial markets, and from my perspective, our financial system cannot keep going the way it's going. It looks like a fast train headed towards a brick wall. So my question is, will we see that system restructured, redefined, and when might we see a change in that? Thank you.
Yes, the council comes in to answer your first question about the ancient ruins. And yes, we would agree that as your vibration is changing, you are allowing these manifestations to take place. And let us go further with the description of this. Many of these ancient ruins, for example, or ancient tablets, they exist in ulterior dimensions than what you are holding here on this planet. Dimensions are layers of information, and there are different aspects of universal law that operate in each of these dimensions. For the sake of this conversation, we will say that in this universe, we recognize 13 specific dimensions that are operative of the human collective. Within those 13 dimensions, there are ancient ruins, there are ancient tablets, there is an ancient Atlantis, there are a variety of aspects of your planet that reside. And as you are raising your consciousness, you will have more access to these dimensions. And the difference is, on a collective scale, the entire collective must access it at the same time in order for the appearance of it to take place. So in your singular structure, what is happening is you have 12 strands of DNA with a 12-strand crystalline double. As you continue to activate your consciousness, you are accessing more information from each dimension by tuning into those various strands of DNA. So there may be humans that are vibrating in access of the 7th dimension. There may be singular humans that are accessing the 5th dimension, but this is due to your free will. You all operate in a free will structure that enables you to choose your interaction with the universe and the way in which you wish to expand that. As a collective, it's a bit different because, as the previous message was brought in, you are molding and shaping your collective vibration based on every singular component or structure within it. So we believe that in this moment, there are two separate dimensional realities existing and forming on this planet. There is a third dimensional consciousness and a solid fifth dimensional energy that many of you are already attuned to. This fifth dimensional energy is, or collective we'll call it, is the reason why many of these ancient ruins, as you have mentioned, are reappearing on your planet. The vibration here is strong enough to access what lies within that fifth dimensional energy, so it must appear. It must appear in physical. You're manifesting it in physical because your consciousness must see it in physical. Now, we will speak, and the Pleiadians come in, we will speak to the financial situation on your planet. We are the Pleiadian Collective, we are ninth dimensional, and we are very honored to be a part of this transmission. We must first explain that you manifested your financial system here on this planet through a more physically focused dimension. You have been activated and hold a 12-strand DNA, yet there has been a reptilian consciousness that has harnessed that DNA for their own creation. The way that this has worked is that your attention has been drawn into physical, and physical forms of source energy have manifested here on the planet. So we consider your financial system a simple physical manifestation of your perception of source energy. This is a very restrictive way to view source energy, and it is a very physical one indeed. Now, we often speak of hierarchies as well. This reptilian consciousness that embodies your planet relies on hierarchies in order to operate within your creative source. The financial structure that you have currently on this planet is a very strong hierarchical system. But what's happened is there has been a leveling off of vibration. So I must speak about humanity first to help you understand the way that the financial system is changing. All of you are vibrating in a similar frequency in this moment. You operate within your DNA differently, very similarly to what the council brought in. You have free will to operate within your crystalline technology differently than what anyone else does. Yet at the same time, you are more collectively focused and have all reached a specific Hertz frequency that is in equilibrium. This is the first step in breaking down these hierarchies, because everything energetic first forms physical material. We believe this is a good sign, and many of you are feeling the discord of this adjustment. Those who are empathic are feeling much more empathic. Those who are connected to healing and collective energies are feeling those healings amplify and feeling the discord in their physical body of the adjustments of the energy. This is because that speed of vibration is now allowing humans to come together closer in a time-space reality. How this will shift your financial structure is a very slow and steady process. And similar to the question about the planetary energies, we must default to what the Council has recommended about projections. It is difficult for us to make linear projections. We can say what we see in the moment, but you are vibrational beings that are always affecting that potential. As this vibrational speed has leveled off, we are beginning to notice that the hierarchical process of your financial structure is beginning to break down. You see, your record is involved in this, and there were many planetary energies that triggered responses on the planet in order for this to take place. Think of the orchestration of Source, always allowing you to connect with what you need. When there is a new identity being formed, Source energy provides what that new identity needs. And here on the planet, your material financial structure is a part of your identity. So you are sourcing now what you need in order to not only break down the hierarchy of the monetary system, but allow it to rebuild itself better equal to a collective source energy. So what we see is this. If you think back to many of the weather events that have taken place on your planet and many of the, we'll call them aspects of war that have taken place recently that have shown up in smaller fragmented collectives. These have been the beginnings of the events that are showing themselves to break down this hierarchy. And the reason for this is many will realize that your banking structure cannot support, your insurance structure cannot support what is taking place currently on the planet in an effective way. So new mechanisms must be found. It is if humans tend to like to go around the problem to find a new solution. And in going around the problem to find a new solutions are born. But the energy starts first. So we believe that in the next 5 years, there will be a manifestation of a new form of currency, much of which has already been formed on your planet, but has yet to come together. We want you to think of the alternative currency that currently exists on your planet as separate timelines, because there are many forms of this. And separate timelines are very good because they show us where we're going, but the integration of those timelines is what culminates in a mass shift on the planet. So what we believe in the next 5 years that you are heading towards is an integration of the alternative currencies that currently exist on your planet into a new form, into a new structure that is available and accepted by the masses in order to replace what has happened here. Now, we want to make it very clear that you are all a part of this process. The way in which you interpret physical currency in your own life has everything to do with the manifestation of change and the way the planet responds to that manifestation and change. You see, many of you, in the same way that you've been in this narrow focus of your record, have been in a narrow focus around finance, that it comes from outside of you and that it must be sourced from outside of you, and that there's something you must do in order to receive. But if you begin to let go of the notion of how money flows, how currency flows, and tune more into source energy, what you will begin to find and notice is alternative sources coming in to support you that are not coming from your current physical financial structure. And the acknowledgement of this becomes the wave of energy that supports the creation of what is coming next.
In the context of the timeline split, I have a question regarding teenagers.
Yes.
Our teenagers are indoctrinated in the school system and addicted to technology. How can we, as parents and educators, assist them to get on the soul path?
We're getting a combination here of the Pleiadians and Mary Magdalene, so I think they'll both be speaking to this issue. And we are the Pleiadian collective. We wish to help you understand better the way in which your youth is aligned and responding to the transitions that are taking place currently on your planet. You see, many of you perceive that the youth's use of technology is taking them down a path of the third dimension. But we really want to define for you what this timeline split is truly about. Because you look at it, again, as very physical. Those who are not understanding the way in which the universe works are on that third dimensional path. Those that hold a smaller consciousness or awareness or are shut down in their emotional body are on that third dimensional path. But what we want you to realize is that many who are awakened, many who have access into the fifth dimension may also choose a third dimensional path. The reason for this is it's the way in which the consciousness is directed through physical that has everything to do with the reality that you choose. Now, many of these teenagers, especially those that are in, we would say the age range of 15 to 19, are very pivotal in the shifts that are coming next. They came here with an extrasensory ability that is telepathic, and many of them are very painfully emotional in their extrasensory abilities, meaning that it is not just tuning into another physical being that sets off their internal structure. It is the way in which they perceive the collective around them that sets off that internal structure. Many of them find themselves in very similarly to your question, teachings or schools that hold them back in the way they are meant to express. But you must realize that every soul that comes here, regardless of how crystal they are, because many souls come with a very high degree of crystalline energy to telepathically connect, they must hold some degree of karma in order to be here on this planet and resonate in this field. Many of these children have chosen in their early years to experience these dense frequencies of karma. And they are doing this by simply being in these structural energies of school and government, for example, and perhaps even families that don't recognize or realize the shifts that are taking place on the planet. So we see them resulting to technology mostly to escape their energy field, their emotional frequencies. And what we believe is that it's very important, very similarly to the message that the council brought in today, to allow them to be in the present moment to express the way in which they are feeling about their current reality. Many of them are far wiser than what they express vocally to their parents and to their teachers. But many of them have yet to be activated. And we want to speak to the technology issue and physical, as well as to what we see for this group of children and their potential that they hold, because we have to also acknowledge that every human comes in with free will. So regardless of their crystalline energy, they have a free will structure to choose that crystalline energy in this life. Many of them have chose the specific people around them and experience around them in order to do this. Now, as a crystalline energy, technology can be an interesting factor, because on your planet, many of these crystalline children find technology so fascinating because they were developers of it in other dimensions. Many of the ways in which the human collective communicates through cellular phones, for example, and many of these devices was created in a way that was healing collective energies in different dimensions, was creating in different dimensions. So they are very drawn to them, not necessarily for escape only, but because they have a very strong tie to the way these technologies have been manifested on your planet and how they will continue to be manifested. What we want you to realize is that every soul chooses a path equal to what they are here to shift. So this age group that we have defined, we see them as being very pivotal in making the shifts in telecommunication on your planet. So is it harmful for them to be on these devices before they have been activated to do their work? And what we will tell you is it's all in the way that those devices are perceived in the home, as well as the way in which these children are responding to the devices, because they're all unique structures. We know that there are man-made frequencies on your planet that are interrupters of your harmonics. However, if you're vibrating in a higher consciousness, you will override the patterns of man-made frequencies to your original state of sound vibration. And many of these children will automatically do this because they are crystal. These man-made frequencies do not affect their epigenetics or their harmonies, because they understand very well how to utilize them in a way that is neutral. There are some, however, that can be very affected by these technologies. And typically what we have observed is that these children can have a very strong hyperactivity. And the reason for this is that the man-made frequency is amplifying within them, because they are so sensitive, their own connections. If this is something that is noticed, it is always beneficial to not necessarily remove the technology completely, but find ways to restrict the environment from these man-made frequencies. Bringing in crystals, for example, will assist in raising the vibration to allow more comfort. But going back to the activation of these children, what we want you to know is there is a solar eclipse that is coming up in this next calendar year. This solar eclipse in particular is very important for the activation of this age group. The reason for this is they chose that time to remember the way in which they came in with these technological advanced skills. They find themselves in situations where they are not able to express them, and they will need to find new avenues for these abilities that they have as this eclipse takes place. That is not the only activation, but we see it as a significant one for this age group. As parents, we would say the best, and this is Mary Magdalene stepping in to say as parents, it is best to realize that every child comes in with a record, and that record is their own to experience. And many do not understand what is held within that record. They only see in the present moment the struggle between who they desire that child to be and who that child is currently. Knowing that they chose you as a parent, it is important to remember that they have the free will to choose their experience. They have ascension codes within them that will trigger or activate their experiences, and you come to support that in the best way possible. And the best way possible is through your own experience.
All right, hey, can you shed any light on the stability of the internal core of the Earth, the magnetic core, and also pole reversal and potential pole shifts, as well as Birkeland currents as it relates to our consciousness connecting to different dimensions?
We can. We are the council, and we're pleased to answer this question. There is a core within Mother Earth, and this is a crystalline core. You have a crystalline core within you as well. This crystalline core is made up of all things, and when we go back in time to the assembly of the organism of Mother Gaia, we wish to explain that there were many beings that manifested a singular intention to create a new heavenly body. So the energy that flowed to Mother Gaia to create her crystalline core was a multidimensional intention on behalf of many races and many collectives desiring to expand the universe. This is what her crystalline core is. It is an assembly of information and intentions of many multidimensional beings that have been activated through her physical experience. The poles are magnetizing the energy within the crystalline core, and oftentimes, as those pole reversals, as you have mentioned, take place, there are significant transitions that are occurring within the crystalline core. The crystalline core connects to the grid. And as we mentioned, there are portals that exist in the grid. As the Council of Light, we oversee these portals as well as these grid lines and how they connect. When the human consciousness is finding itself in a creative potential that may be destructive to humanity or the universe, we, as 12th dimensional beings in the highest integrity, operate through the portals to activate her crystalline core. What happens when that crystalline core is activated is large raises in consciousness are potentials for humanity. As the poles are magnetized to receive these raises in frequency, they distribute the information through her grid lines. There are grid lines within Mother Gaia, just as there are grid lines within you. Many of you are understanding of your different vibrational points on the body. Well, Mother Gaia has these vibrational points as well. And as they are activated and magnetized, there is new information that is brought to your planet. So essentially, this crystalline core, you can think of it as a large magnetic structure with the ability to be activated and draw new multidimensional information through Mother Gaia and into the poles to be distributed through the earth. And as you are human beings connected to that earth, you receive electromagnetically that information. Now, pole shifts have taken place throughout time and space, throughout history. These pole shifts are significant because oftentimes when there's a shift in the poles, the magnetics and the pull of the magnetics will change, meaning that information will be coming in from a different dimension or direction. And this is necessary for Mother Earth to evolve. Very similarly to your DNA. You, as humans, have crystalline DNA that holds a relationship to all of your multidimensional timelines. Whether you've been in Atlantis, the Pleiades, Arcturus, Sirius, all of that information lies within your DNA. Mother Earth also has DNA, and there is information that lies within her DNA. And there are reversals of the poles to focus the information of her DNA and record in a way that amplifies human experience. So every time this takes place, what you can be sure of is that Mother Earth is assimilating new DNA strands and activating herself to offer humanity new information. The question was asked previously about the arrival of ancient tablets or history or information, and this is exactly how this happens. These new dimensional directions open up portal energies to manifest into your physical the evidence of what has been lacking in your experience. Now, we also want to bring in the solar activity to explain the way that solar activity is connected to this phenomenon, because solar energies are the storage of your expansive creative effort. Many of you, as you expand, as information is or experience is traversed, the solar energies capture the expanded frequencies and hold them in storage or escrow for you, and is able to transmute the what we'll call lower vibrational aspects of those experiences and hand them back to you when appropriate for your own expansion. So think of yourself expanding from your own information when solar energies are very intense. They are providing you an opportunity to go within the soul frequencies and activate yourselves based on your own linear experience. When the poles shift, the solar frequencies will often come in to assist in that pole shift so that souls on the planet who are integrating information will receive a higher degree of what they've already walked through in their soul vibration that accompanies where this new multidimensional energy is assisting them. In other words, you have a connection between your soul and the multidimensional universe, and the solar frequencies come to assist this.
My question is about artificial intelligence, and I understand that it does exist on other planets and our own, obviously, and it is growing and growing every day. There are large organizations investing billions of dollars into it currently, into AGI, right, artificial general intelligence. So my question is, how is that going to affect us in the near future, and will that be a positive or negative? Thank you.
We're the Pleiadians. We're pleased to answer this question. Artificial intelligence on your planet is not necessarily a negative technology. The problem is that it has been directed on a timeline that is not serving humanity. We believe that within your inner core is the technology that is meant to be used, but has taken itself outside of your inner core into a more physical manifestation because of the way you have decided to create here. We can also say that, of course, as we have brought forward in this conversation, there is a reptilian consciousness that is directing your energy, and it is creating through you collective timelines that are not serving. So this artificial intelligence that you speak of, what we wish to say first is that as it is coming to the planet, there is also a historic aspect of this that is being revisited. This is a multidimensional timeline that many of you have been a part of, in which artificial intelligence was created. It is also part of this timeline split. Many of you have been in ulterior dimensions where AI has been a part of the split of timelines in a dimensional reality. This is part of the reason why it exists within your record and why you are dealing with it as a consciousness on your planet right now. What we believe is that the financial input into AI is not necessarily the problem, and many of you perceive that there are many investors in this technology that are going to cause it to be a very troublesome part of your reality. What we believe is the energetics behind the manifestation of this timeline need to be resolved in order for it to fully, what we'll say is transition into a positive aspect of your reality. There was a previous question answered earlier about the younger generation and communication and technology. We see them being very prominent in this timeline reorganization and the way in which humanity will reorganize this timeline. However, what we wish to say is that as you perceive into this technology first, it is important that you align the fear vibration around it, because as you feed into the fear vibration of any timeline, it matters not that it's in fear or resistance, it is an expansion. So those of you who are feeling as if this is going to be the demise of the human collective are actually creating a potential timeline in which it is the demise of the human collective. These potentials are very significant, especially as you're vibrating faster. But we also want to say that the way in which you're manifesting now is quite different. And this timeline split that we see is operating in a way in which this artificial intelligence that has been showing itself on your planet is not going to be able to fully come into fruition. The reason for this is it's a hierarchical structure very similarly to what the monetary system is. And in the same way that the monetary structure must be disorganized due to what's in the record and what you are collaborating with here on the planet, we believe that there's going to be some events that will take place that have already been perceived by humanity and projected into the future that will interrupt this AI technology. Some of the funding, especially, that is a part of this experience is going to have to be redirected. And the reason that we say that is there's a variety of higher dimensional beings that are here right now to help in this process of reintegrating the reptilian consciousness. So we have to talk about the reptilians for a minute to help you get a really good grasp on why AI will change. You see, the reptilian collective collective consciousness that exists within the core of Mother Gaia is affecting humanity through its DNA. Now, there are many reptilians that are part of this light council that you have spoken with today. They are benevolent beings that are desiring the reintegration of these reptilians back into their race. And that process has already begun. There is karma that needs to be resolved in order for this reptilian collective to be reintegrated into its original race. But the karma, due to universal law, must be resolved on this planet before those beings can be reintegrated into their home energy. You may begin to see some of this evolving on your planet. Those who are operating in their reptilian consciousness are going to begin to be activated in their karmic experiences, bringing them back into their soul vibration and having to realign themselves so that this reptilian consciousness can move on. In other words, there's a connection between this reptilian consciousness and humans through the DNA. The humans that are operating on behalf of the reptilians will be activating very karmic situations in order to release the contract and allow them to reintegrate. So we believe that AI is a part of this whole experience. As this reintegration takes place, this timeline will be reorganized, and many of your youth will be able to use some of the technologies and actual advancements that have taken place in that field in a different way that's more telepathic and beneficial to humanity. Tom, you have a question?
I'd like to know the potential interaction between surface humans and inner Earth humans, and is Agartha a place or a dimension?
Yes. Okay, the Pleiadians come in to answer this question. There is an inner Earth, but we want to take you back to the understanding of dimensions, and especially the questions that had come up about history and history coming back to your planet. There are many multiple dimensional realities that exist within Mother Earth. Earth is within a dimensional reality that is 13 dimensions. And I want to share with everyone the vision that they show me. They show me a picture of a round Earth with multiple layers of dimensions running through the Earth, and everyone being able to tap into those multiple energies or dimensions. But within the core of Mother Earth, the inner core, there is a non-physical vibrational energy. So remember the core, and the way we explained the core being a part of every race coming together to form that energetic core. As such, there are many races that exist within the core as collective consciousness. However, human beings that are more advanced in their technology can travel to the inner core and experience these beings in a physical time-space reality due to their technology taking them there. But this is a dimensional experience. So what is within the Earth would not be seen by the naked eye by a human being that was not able to vibrate into the dimension that exists in that collective core, which is multiple, of course. Their consciousness perhaps was not high enough in order to vibrate into that space, and some may be able to vibrate into that space but not hold that reality, you see. So the inner core of Mother Earth is a location in which collective consciousness exists and dimensional realities exist very similarly to the dimensions and planets that exist off Mother Earth. It is all one and the same. It's a universal frequency. And that location of within Earth we would define as the core.
Can you talk about how we should interpret the increased strength of female energy and the recent string of revelations about sexual discrimination and abuse, and how those of us in leadership can assist, because it seems there's a dual need for both healing and empowerment?
The Pleiadians come in to answer this question. You see, within you, within Mother Earth, within the creation of Mother Earth, there was a dynamic of masculine and feminine energy. These energies are charged differently with intention. So imagine your planet being birthed through intention of many beings. And that intention had to include everything that humanity would experience on multiple levels of dimension. In order to do that, there's a masculine energy of creation and a physical female energy of creation that exists within all of you. You've received that. It was seeded within you, not only from Mother Earth, but from many of these multidimensional beings that were responsible for manifesting Mother Earth. Now, think of the male and female energies as a part of your physical experience in your consciousness, how you respond, and many are familiar with this. We may have an experience that takes place that is very difficult for us, and our masculine response might be to be angry or to take action, where our female response may be more compassionate and thoughtful and bringing in support around ourselves instead of moving into action singularly. Now, there's no wrong or right here. The masculine energies are needed. They're a part of our structure. The female energies are needed and a part of our structure. But what's happened is this reptilian consciousness that we have spoken with throughout this transmission, its structure is different than yours. It does not require a male-female balance in order to create. The reptilian collective is an integrative source consciousness that relies on the mind as its organism of creation. The mind on humans is a dominant masculine organism. So what has happened here through time is that this reptilian consciousness has focused humanity in the mind, which is a mental construct of masculinity, to create, and moved it away from its sacral or womb energy, which is the divine feminine, which is a connection to source energy, to assist in that energetic field. And the reason for that is the reptilian consciousness, female energy being a more emotionally based structure, they do not have an emotional body. And again, we wish to reiterate that the reptilian consciousness is not a negative race whatsoever. They were very instrumental in forming the human collective, and your mind was a factor of that collective creation. The reptilian mind is a beautiful organism in which creation takes place. But as you have raised your consciousness, new creative efforts are required in order to move humanity forward in a new dimension. This divine feminine energy, it encompasses the emotional body in action, and it evokes a frequency within for creation that is different. Think about the masculine energy of the mind and the way in which you might approach a task. Only through the mind, but then bringing in the emotional body to perceive the results of that task. This female energy that's more dominant on your planet is a frequency coming from Gaia Sophia. Now, we've just spoken about her crystalline core. Her crystalline core holds the DNA and the likeness of all beings that created her. Within that crystalline core, there is a masculine and a female energy as well. But remember, that frequency of humans and her harmonics has been what the planetary energies have been most focused on in the past several years. There have been new alignments of her chakras There have been harmonics that have shifted within her, very similarly to the question about the reversal of the poles, directing her to new information. That new information had to be the frequency of the divine feminine. And the reason for that was human beings have been using their emotional body in a way in which they have been blinded from their own creation. And it is important now to integrate the understanding of the emotional body in order to allow this reptilian consciousness to move on and transition back into its own race. So quite simply, this divine feminine aspect that you're seeing rise up is coming to help you sort out some of the experiences that you've had previously, that you've walked through in a more male-dominant energy. And we will speak to some of the experiences you're seeing on the planet, the uprising perhaps of many females who have been abused or have great traumas relating to men. Remember that spiral continuum of history. It's always going to repeat itself in order for you to walk through it with a new consciousness. Well, there are two approaches to the uprising of this trauma that's coming back to light on your planet. It can be walked through in a male-dominant energy in which the men are segmented from the women or segregated or held responsible. Or it can be walked with a more female-dominant energy, which is the inclusion of the men and the understanding that this is a situation that all human beings must work out together. Remember, hierarchies and separation are the tools of reptilian consciousness. So when you have a group of perhaps a specific race or a specific sex on your planet that is announcing to the collective that they have been harmed or wronged in some way, that's an emotional-based frequency from the past that is expressing itself in the present moment. But how we've dealt with those expressions in the past has everything to do with how we shift them in the present moment. So you're being called to embody the female energy in how you walk through these timelines. And you have asked the best way to support women, perhaps, that have gone through these traumas that are now showing themselves again on your planet, although they have never totally resolved themselves. And what we first want to remind you of is that as humanity, we don't belittle your suffering, we don't belittle your karma and the choices that you've made, but we come to remind you that you have been on both sides of it. You have been male, you have been female, you have been the accused, you have been the accuser. And that is the female perspective that is needed in order to heal these wounds. It is okay to hold people accountable, but what is more important is the energy that you hold within as you're walking through the experience of the accountability. And so we believe that this rise up the divine feminine can be talked about in many dimensional realities here on your planet because it exists in many forms. But in response to what's happening in the upheaval of your collective history, it holds a very important aspect of your emotional body and compassion. And it's not compassion for the other and letting them out of what happened and being held accountable for what they did. It is having the compassion for yourself to allow the healing to take place, to move forward, and not creating more separation between sex, between race, that ultimately ends up in these hierarchical structures that we have talked about. So what we see is taking place now is that you're revisiting some of these timelines where some of these hierarchies were actually reinforced by a male-dominant perception of experience. And we'll take you back to some of the timelines of femininity, where many of the females on your planet were able to achieve equilibrium to men. There's nothing wrong in the achieving of the equilibrium, but in how you achieve it, that energetically serves humanity. So the anger, the expression of anger, it is okay to express anger in the moment, but we've held on to that anger as a collective, and it must resurface because we must look at these experiences differently from our female vantage point.
Thank you. As educators and light workers, what is our responsibility? There seems to be more mental imbalance, especially in young people. Depression, many young people on medication. It seems that there can be other ways. What is our violence, suicide? What is our responsibility? What can we do to hold space for that to be in balance again and natural?
We're the Pleiadians. We're pleased to answer this question. And we could take this question and frame it in many different ways, because this issue on your planet is not just one issue. There are humans that are experiencing these types of emotional imbalances for a variety of different reasons. But we'll speak to collective consciousness and what we see as patterns existing currently and the way in which this is playing out. Because this solar eclipse that we have spoken of that's coming, we want to direct your attention back to the one that just happened recently in August. And there was a very large energetic buildup to this solar eclipse. The aim of this solar eclipse was not only to integrate your chakras and activate your extrasensory abilities, but it was also bringing up timeline information. And this timeline information had to do with your linear timeline. You have the soul container, as has been explained, but there is also a collective raising up of karma that is taking place on your planet right now. Again, think of Mother Gaia as purging karma and timeline information in order for humanity to walk through it in a way that is realigning it and resolving it. Now, many humans are not equipped in this energy to be able to deal with the changes that are taking place, the transitions that are taking place energetically as well as physically on your planet. And the reason that we say this is because it's a collective energy. And again, many of you have been focused in physical. You have been trained to believe that everything that you experience in your physical reality must be sourced by you by doing. And many find themselves in a situation where the outer reflection of that doing is not serving their source energy. But they don't have the tools, the technology to understand the way to truly tap into this collective energy differently. Now, empathy is a very big part of this, because remember how the council brought in the understanding of time-space reality and how humanity is vibrating at a faster speed, and your light bodies and your oversoul and your higher self are connecting more now than ever. Those who are highly empathic or able to take on the density, the energies of others, we believe are feeling compounded right now by this collective integration. The reason for this is that they are feeling more into the collective energies than they ever have before. So the burden is not necessarily theirs, it's the burden of humanity that they're sifting through their own consciousness. Now, you've asked the best way to handle this or deal with this, and it is important to note, and we always will bring in the perspective of soul contracts, because those partners, those friendships, those humans around you who are experiencing depression or mental illness, for example, to some degree, we have to say that that potential existed within their record. And that potential is hard for us to say is for one reason or another. But there is a great purpose in any potential. You would not come here with a potential in your record to experience something without it having a significant tie into your output here on the planet and in this universe. So many who are experiencing right now their higher empathic source energy being turned inside out or feeling difficult are here to work with the new technologies to be able to find themselves on the other side, to assist others who will go through very similar transitions. But it's difficult for them to see this in the present moment. They chose you in this reality as a conduit for everything that they needed to source to assist them on their journey. But the problem with humanity is that they try to control in the physical. So we see someone who is struggling in their mental body, their emotional body, or taking medication, and we want to teach them, we want to train them, we want to get them on the new path. But often they came to us to see a potential in us that could exist within them. So we must say that living your highest truth in every relationship and every soul contract becomes your best effort at assisting those souls on their journey. Now, we also want to discuss the extrasensory tools and the chakras. You see, many are experiencing shifts in their energy field due to the integration of the chakras and the grids that are activated. Many who are extra sensitive, when the planets shift or the poles shift, for example, their physical or emotional bodies will take a very dramatic toll. And the reason for this is that there's a time-space reality between where the physical body catches up to the new energy. This can cause symptoms like depression. It can cause symptoms like exhaustion, for example, in the physical body. And the best tool is awareness, because oftentimes humans that are in the situation of depression or emotional body frequencies are running a pattern of resistance. And that is why they feel the way that they feel. They have a strong pattern of resistance to something that is or is not. The human structure enjoys patterns. It is a sacred geometric structure. So when patterns form, it tends to repeat those patterns because it is a comfortable energy of expansion. But this is an area that we do not wish to expand. Forming healthy patterns in different lanes of the direction of the problem can result in healing the emotional and physical body. Listening to what the body needs and allowing the body to integrate information is another valuable tool. Most human beings have some type of physical energy that they are not happy with in this moment. The problem is that they're tuning into that physical energy of what they're not happy with and not allowing themselves to tune into the rest of the energy that makes up their physical experience. Because the depression, the emotional body frequency, the weight gain, the disease, whatever it may be, is a pattern that exists in one small area of your overall frequency. But because it is so bothersome to you or because you're in so much resistance, it becomes a dominant pattern of attention and perception for you, such that it grows everything else. And then you begin to manifest into the rest of your physical experience from that one pattern. So we encourage humanity to create patterns in new areas outside of the lane of the problem. And the reason that we say this is that this is how consciousness shifts. You were built as sacred geometry, always vibrationally changing. So if you stay stagnant in your geometric patterns, you will be more susceptible to these extrasensory integrations, disease, depression, stagnant resistance. So moving in the direction of something new, bringing in new information, will always assist in the expansion and the reorganization of those patterns, so that what happens is when attention is put on a very positive pattern, it will override the negative pattern. And pretty soon it'll repattern that experience and a new timeline will be walked.
I had a question. Part of it's already been answered. You mentioned insurance before. I'm a physician, and I know that the medical system is not going to be maintained by the current hierarchy. It's going to change. However, I'm not sure I can see a bridge between the hierarchy now and where it's going to be going and how we can be that bridge, besides being our highest self.
These are the Pleiadians. They come in to answer this question. They say that humanity is the bridge. What often happens is there is a structure that is relied upon on your planet for stability. It is something that you go to time and time again, and it serves you. And many of you are familiar with this in your own singular experience. And for example, this can be a relationship. There may be a very stable and solid relationship in your life that is serving you. But your vibration can change in a moment, And all of a sudden, that relationship that used to serve you and used to feel very good is not serving you whatsoever. And there is, in fact, a distinct difference in vibration between you and this person that you have now held so dear. Take that analogy to a collective scale. Because what's happening on the planet is consciousness is raising so fast that many of the more physical programs that have been manifested to respond to physical anatomy are no longer going to work for humanity. And you may see this happening already, that there are failed technologies within your medical structure. And it becomes the question, how long will humanity accept a failed technological system of physical health before it begins to reach out to other avenues to support the healing that it needs? And of course, this relates to the consciousness. What we see is that consciousness already is shifting. And many are beginning to reach out to alternative technologies for healing. Some of those alternative technologies have not been steadily supported here on your planet dimensionally. And the reason for that is the consciousness is a part of that timeline creation. So in other words, the more that humanity accepts alternative technologies for healing, the more the alternative technologies for healing become stabilized and available. But we do see this shift taking place. Is it necessary for conventional medicine to fail in order for new technologies to present themselves? We would say to some degree, yes, because very similarly to the way that emotional frequencies clear your structure to recalibrate it for integration, physical structures must also be cleared in order to recalibrate for integration. And we believe that process is already taking place. Now remember, there is a timeline split that is taking place here. Those in the third dimension still are vibrating at a very fast speed and able to manifest and create here on your planet. What that means is they will manifest the appropriate technologies, facilities to assist them in their consciousness. So some of these medical facilities may still exist as long as these third dimensional beings exist on your planet. It does not mean that the new alternative technologies cannot come in and cannot stabilize, and we certainly believe that that's already taken place. We believe that the underlying energy is supporting the potentials of many of these alternative technologies coming into the forefront in your conventional treatment facilities. And the reason for this is that many of the souls that have signed on to be healers in this time on your planet are becoming activated now to present their healing differently. So many of those that are in the mainstream medical facilities are having awakenings of consciousness that are leading them to alternative energetic types of healing. And as they accept that through their free will, the structure will continue to evolve. Yeah. Good. Okay. Wow, I feel like I've been up here for 2 days. Was it 2 days? Okay. Does anyone have any final questions about channeling, what happened here, vibration, dimensions? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for being a part of this. Remember, this was vibrational, so you receive everything that you need uniquely. And stay tuned for more. If you'd like to check out my videos, they're all on YouTube. If you haven't seen my material, go to awakeandempoweredexpo.com and you can download and just review all kinds of fun stuff.